At 15, my parents kicked me out over one hallway light. I slept in a garage, worked 2 jobs, and built my own HVAC crew. Then they claimed they funded everything, so I brought every receipt. Have you ever been thrown out of your own house over a light switch? No. Just me? Cool. It happened during the summer. I turned 15 right in the middle of July, during one of those heat waves where the air feels like it has weight. My only crime was leaving the hallway light on while I went to grab a glass of water at 1 in the morning. From the way my dad reacted, you would have thought I had set the house on fire. He stormed into the hallway like the ghost of unpaid electric bills and shouted that I treated the place like a hotel, that electricity was not free, and that I should know better. I stood there blinking at him mid-sip, shirtless, confused, and still half asleep, while my mom crossed her arms and added her favorite line, that if I wanted to waste power, I should pay my own bills. I did not argue, I did not slam a door, I did not even finish my water. When my dad's veins were popping out of his neck and my mom's arms were crossed tighter than a bank vault, I already knew where the night was headed. Outside. At first, I thought they were bluffing. I really did. Parents say dramatic things all the time. But within 20 minutes, my duffel bag was packed. By me, of course. My dad pointed toward the porch like it was a crime scene and I was the suspect. He told me to get out. He said it like I was a dog that had peed on the rug. I did not even have shoes on. I was 15 years old with no job, no license, no plan, just socks, an old gym bag, and the knowledge that my family apparently valued a utility bill more than their own kid. The best part was what my mom called after me as I stepped outside. She told me it was tough love and that I would thank them someday. Sure, because nothing says character development like getting booted out of your own bed over an LED bulb. I ended up crashing in my friend Jace's garage. His parents did not know for the first 2 nights. I just snuck in after dark and curled up under a tarp next to a lawnmower and a box of Christmas lights. I used an old dog bed as a pillow. That is not a metaphor. It was literally a dog bed. His German Shepherd growled at me once, then decided I was not worth the trouble. During the day, I wandered around town pretending I had errands just so nobody would ask questions. I showered at the community pool. I ate crackers in the park. I spent most of my time trying not to cry in public. It sounds funny now because I can talk about it with jokes wrapped around it. But back then, it was brutal. I was 15. I had no idea how taxes worked. I barely knew how to survive a school week, let alone how to survive being ghosted by my own family. The worst part was not sleeping on concrete. It was not eating peanut butter straight from the jar. It was knowing they did not call, not once. They did not ask if I had somewhere to sleep. They did not drop off a blanket. They did not bring a toothbrush. There was only silence, like I had been a tenant who forgot to pay rent and they had simply moved on. After a week, Jace's mom found me sneaking toast from the garage fridge. She did not yell. She did not scold me. She just blinked twice and asked why I had not told them. I shrugged because I did not have an answer that would not break me open. She let me stay. Their garage had no air conditioning, but at least it had outlets and a blanket that did not smell like old dog. I started sleeping on a foam mat between the recycling bin and the water heater. I charged my phone at night and started Googling how to get a job at 15 without dying. The internet gave me options: busboy, lawnmower, dishwasher. I chose all 3. By the end of that month, I was working 2 part-time jobs and mowing lawns on weekends. It was not glamorous. I was constantly tired, always sweaty, and my only vacation was the 5 minutes between shifts when I got to chug a Sprite in peace. But for the first time in my life, I felt awake. Not alive exactly, just aware. I was aware that I was on my own. I was aware that no one was coming to fix this. And somewhere in that garage, between dragging trash cans, scrubbing syrup off diner tables, and falling asleep with sore hands, something clicked. If I was going to survive, I could not just work hard. I had to build something. And it started with a broken air conditioner in Jace's garage. The first time I fixed an air conditioner, I did not even mean to. Jace's dad had been complaining about the garage unit for weeks because it blew hot air and ate electricity like it was at an all-you-can-eat buffet. One night, after a brutally humid shift at the diner, I sat beside it with my shirt soaked through and decided to look inside. Not because I knew what I was doing, I did not. I had watched 2 YouTube videos with titles that basically promised to teach me how not to die while touching HVAC parts. And I figured I had already been kicked out of my house, so what else could go wrong? I unscrewed the panel with a butter knife, stared at the dusty guts inside, and started poking around like a raccoon with a diploma. 30 minutes later, the unit made a sound like a dying goat, then hummed to life. Cool air spilled out, and I swear I nearly cried, right there between the extension cords and a broken shop vac. Jace came out with 2 sodas and froze when he felt the cold air. He asked if I had fixed it. I looked at the unit, then at him, completely wide-eyed, and said I guessed I had. He handed me a soda like it was a trophy. That was the moment everything clicked. Not just the AC me. I realized I liked fixing things, especially things that were not supposed to work anymore. Especially things everyone else had given up on. Things like me. That night, I stayed up Googling HVAC tutorials. I binged forums with names like Tech Talk Chillers Only and Duct Tape Dynasty. I watched some guy named Big Mike explain the inner workings of a condenser coil with the enthusiasm of a caffeinated preacher. I did not care if it was nerdy. It felt like magic. It felt like I was learning a language no one else in my life had ever bothered to teach me. Within 2 weeks, I bought my first multimeter off eBay for $12. It barely worked and had a crack in the screen, but it beeped, and I loved that beep more than I had ever loved a birthday card from my parents. I started offering to fix things around the neighborhood. Not for money at first, just for practice. Window units, thermostats, fridges, whatever people would let me touch. Half the time, I made things worse. The other half, people offered to pay me in cash or leftovers. One lady paid me in lasagna, and I called that a win. By 17, I had a milk crate full of tools, a notebook full of troubleshooting codes, and a Craigslist ad that read, Teen HVAC Tech. Cheap, fast, not terrible. Shockingly, it worked. My first official job was at Mrs. Linetti's house. Her AC was blowing hot, and her grandson was getting cranky. I fixed it in 2 hours flat. She gave me $80 in cash and a mango smoothie. I walked home like I had won the lottery. That money went straight into a used tool bag and a new flashlight. I named the flashlight Beamer. Beamer and I fixed 5 more units that month. Jace helped me design a logo. It was supposed to be a snowflake wearing sunglasses. It looked more like a confused spider, but we printed it on t-shirts anyway. I wore that thing like armor. Then came community college. Not as a student. I was too young, too broke, and too busy. But I found an HVAC professor who let me sneak into the back of his class as long as I promised not to ask questions. He had a mustache you could store pencils in, and a voice that sounded like it had smoked 2 packs a day since the Nixon administration. I called him Professor Lungs in my head. He called me the kid with opinions. He never asked why I was there. He never told me to leave. He just tossed me an old manual and told me that if I could fix the lab unit without blowing it up, he would give me the wiring diagrams. I fixed it twice. That winter, I passed my EPA Section 608 certification. I borrowed a suit jacket from Jace's closet and walked into the testing center like I belonged there. When the proctor handed me the results and I saw that I had passed Universal, I almost kissed him. Instead, I bought myself a real lunch for the first time in months. Burger fries, no regret. I wish I could say my parents called during any of this. They did not. There was no, "How are you?" No, "We miss you." Not even a sarcastic comment asking if I was still wasting electricity. They just vanished. Honestly, in a strange way, that helped. Every time I wanted to quit, every time I felt like an imposter wearing someone else's work boots, I remembered that porch. I remembered the way my dad pointed. I remembered the way my mom did not blink. I remembered the words I heard as the door closed behind me, that someday I would thank them. Well, someday was getting closer. You cannot run a business with duct tape and dreams. I tried. At first it was just me, Beamer the flashlight, and an old bike with one functioning gear. I strapped my tool bag to the back with a bungee cord, prayed it would not fall into traffic, and pedaled across town looking like a rogue garbage man on a mission. But word got out. Mrs. Linetti told her bridge group. Her bridge group told their church. Before long, I had more requests than I could physically bike to. I even got a Yelp review written in all caps that just said, He fixed the cold thing, 5 stars. The problem was that I was still juggling 2 jobs and sneaking into college classes between gigs. I was exhausted, broke, and wearing through sneakers faster than I could tape the soles. One night, after slipping on a patch of spilled coolant and face-planting into a stack of air filters, I sat in the garage bleeding slightly and decided this could not just be a hustle. It had to become a crew. But not just any crew. I wanted people like me. Kids who had been told they were not worth investing in. People who had been kicked out, shut down, laughed at, or written off. I did not want sympathy hires. I wanted survivors. People with dirt under their nails and fire behind their eyes. So, I started recruiting. My first hire was Zeke, a guy I met in the diner kitchen who used to fix HVAC units in juvie. He was quiet, precise, and had an encyclopedic knowledge of fuses. He also cursed like a sailor, but only when the copper piping kinked. Next came Deandra, who went by Dee. Dee could lift a condenser coil like it was a grocery bag. She once rewired an entire breaker box with her left hand while eating a granola bar with her right. I offered her a job on the spot. By the end of that year, we were 3 deep, working out of a borrowed garage with clipboards stolen from a defunct tutoring center. I printed business cards at the library. They were crooked, smudged, and probably said LV Heating and Air. Built from scratch, fixed with fire. We did not have uniforms. We had matching hoodies I bought from a thrift store and embroidered myself with an iron-on patch kit. Half of the patches peeled off in the dryer. I did not care. We had no office. We had no receptionist. We had 1 toolbox, 1 extension ladder, and 1 shared Google Calendar that Dee updated religiously. But we had something better than polish. We had reputation. When you show up early, fix the thing right the first time, and actually listen to your clients, people remember. We started getting commercial calls, small offices, bakeries, a gym that smelled like wet ambition. I had to buy a whiteboard just to keep track of invoices. Then came the van. It was not pretty. It was the color of sadness and had a dent in the side shaped like Florida. But it ran, mostly. Zeke and I sanded it, painted it ourselves, and added our logo using adhesive decals that refused to stay level. It looked like a toddler had tried branding, but it was ours. One morning, while eating gas station breakfast sandwiches and watching steam rise from the vents, I realized something. I was not just surviving anymore. We were building something. With every bolt we tightened and every thermostat we calibrated, we were not just fixing homes. We were fixing ourselves. We were proving quietly that we were worth more than the world had ever bet on us. Then, one day it happened. A guy from the local news called and said he had heard about a team-led HVAC crew with a cult following and wanted to do a feature. I laughed so hard I choked on my iced coffee. I thought it was a prank. It was not. He came by, shot a segment, and aired it that Friday night right after the weather report. The headline was about Garage Grit, a local teen building an HVAC business from the ground up. My phone exploded. Jace texted me that I was literally on TV. His mom cried. The diner manager called and told me I should think about going full-time. Dee fist bumped me so hard I almost dropped a thermostat. And my parents? They did not call. Not that night. Not the next day. But by Sunday morning, my name was trending inside their Facebook circle, and suddenly they remembered I existed. The first time my mom messaged me in 2 years, it was because her coworker shared the news clip on Facebook. Her message said she was so proud of me, with a red heart, and that they had always known I had it in me. She said we should catch up soon. I stared at that message for 10 minutes, trying to decide whether to laugh, scream, or send back a photo of the garage floor I had slept on for months. Instead, I left it unread and went back to scrubbing melted duct tape off the van's dashboard. That same week, my dad left me a voicemail. This was the same man who had once shouted that electricity did not grow on trees, like he was quoting Shakespeare. Now his voice was calm, practiced, friendly. He called me buddy. He said he had heard about the company, that it was impressive, that he was really proud, and that maybe it was time we sat down and talked, man to man. He suggested dinner. his treat. He even added a chuckle at the end like we were old pals catching up at a golf course, instead of two people with a shared history of slammed doors and unpaid apologies. I did not reply. I did, however, get invited to a business panel at the local community center. It was one of those entrepreneur success story things where they hand you a cheap microphone and ask how you went from zero to HVAC hero. It was sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and catered with sad cookies and weak coffee, but still, it was something. They asked me to speak on Sunday. 2 days before the event, I got an email with the subject line, Special Guests Sunday Panel. Guess who was listed? Local business supporters, Mr. and Mrs. Roland Lucas's parents. I read it twice. They had not asked me. They had not called. They had simply RSVP'd, like this was a PTA meeting and not my literal origin story. Zeke saw my face and asked what was up. I handed him my phone. He read the email, blinked, and muttered that it was time to bring the petty. I smiled and told him it was not petty. It was prepared. So I started collecting old diner pay stubs, the receipt from my EPA exam fee, the crumpled invoice from the thrift store where I bought our first work shirts, and even the Craigslist printout for the $800 van, with "Needs TLC" in the description. I put everything in a folder and labeled it "Proof I Did It Myself." Sunday came fast. I wore my cleanest hoodie, pressed my jeans, and even used real deodorant. Dee said I looked like a respectable adult, then immediately asked if I was dying. The event was packed in the way small-town events get packed. Old teachers, former clients, one guy who once stiffed me on a payment but now wanted a selfie. Then I saw them. My parents were sitting in the front row. My mom wore pearls. My dad wore khakis. They had smiles like mannequins in a showroom. When I walked onto the stage, they clapped harder than anyone. I took the mic, looked at the crowd, and smiled. I introduced myself as Lucas, the owner of LV Heating and Air. I said, I fix things. Then I said, I also used to sleep in a garage. Half the crowd chuckled. I kept going. I told them I had started my company with nothing but a broken bike and a cracked flashlight. I told them some people thought I would not make it. I told them some people made sure I did not have a place to start. The room got quiet. My dad's smile twitched. Then I said I wanted to thank my team, my friends, and a few special items that had gotten me there. I pulled out the folder. I held up the thrift store receipt and explained that it was where I bought our first uniforms. I held up the EPA certification receipt and explained that I paid for it with diner tips. My mom blinked hard. I held up the Craigslist post for the van and explained that I bought it after 3 months of splitting Subway sandwiches with my crew. Someone in the back let out a low whistle. Then I held up a photo of the garage and told everyone it had been my first office. No desk, no heat, but plenty of heart. I paused. Then I told the room that my parents were there that day and had RSVP'd as supporters, which was interesting because when I was 15, I had been kicked out of the house for leaving a light on. The gasps were real. I did not look at them. I looked straight at the audience. I said success stories were nice, but we should not pretend the road there was always paved with cheerleaders. Sometimes it was just you, a wrench, and the decision to show up anyway. The applause hit hard, loud, big. Someone even whistled. I stepped back, let the next speaker take the mic, and walked off stage. My mom stood up to meet me, lips tight, and asked if we could talk. I walked past her, slow and calm, and told her, no thanks, because electricity was expensive. I expected radio silence after that. Instead, I got a full-court press. Monday morning, I woke up to 4 missed calls from my dad, a 2-paragraph email from my mom titled, "Let's Clear the Air," complete with a red heart, and 1 text from Natalie. Yes, that Natalie. My cousin Natalie, the same cousin who once called me AC boy at Thanksgiving. She texted that the family was buzzing, that my speech was huge, that Grandma wanted to know if it was on YouTube, and that the receipts were petty king energy. I did not reply. By noon, I had been tagged in 3 Facebook posts by people I barely remembered from middle school. One said they had always known I would make it. They had not. Another called me an inspiration and somehow still had me blocked for some reason. Then came the cherry on top. The town newsletter ran a write-up about me going from garage to greatness and becoming a local HVAC mogul. Mogul. I had one van, 3 humans, and a dog that barked at thermostats. But sure, mogul worked. That afternoon, while Dee was balancing invoices and Zeke was elbow deep in a compressor, I heard the knock. Not just a knock, the knock. I opened the workshop door, and there they were, my parents. They were both dressed like they had come from either church or court, and it was hard to tell which. My mom held a grocery bag like a peace offering. My dad wore the tight-lipped smile he used to save for parent-teacher conferences. My mom softly asked if they could come in. I stepped aside, not out of forgiveness, out of curiosity. They sat at the fold-out table we used for lunch breaks. Bruno circled them twice, then lay down with a sigh that sounded like judgment. My mom placed the grocery bag on the table and started unpacking. A store-bought pie. A framed picture of me as a baby, back when I still had baby teeth. And then she pulled out the thing that actually got me. My old baby blanket. I stared at it. It had a torn corner and yellow ducks. It smelled like attic. She said she thought I might want it back. I pointed to the blanket Bruno was currently using and told her I already had one. My dad cleared his throat and said they knew they had not handled things right. Silence. Then he added that they had been scared. He said raising kids was not easy. He said I had always been independent, but also stubborn. He said they thought a little tough love would teach me responsibility. I tilted my head and asked if kicking his son out over a hallway light built character. He flinched. Then he said they had been under pressure, finances, stress. He told me I knew how it was. I told him I did know because I paid every bill myself now. My mom sniffled and said I did not have to throw it in their faces. I opened the receipt folder and laid it between us. I told her that actually, I literally did. They stared at the pile. W-2S invoices, certification receipts, student loan statements, all organized like a prosecutor's briefcase. My dad asked why I had kept all of it. I told him it was because I knew one day they would try to take credit. He winced. My mom looked down and said they were not asking for anything, so I asked why they had shown up. More silence. Then my mom said it was because they had not known. They had not known I would do all of this. They had not known I would make something real, something respected. She looked around the garage, at the tools, the whiteboard, the dusty HVAC parts stacked like trophies, and whispered that they were proud of me. She said they really were. It was almost believable. But here's the thing about pride. If it only shows up when the cameras do, it is not pride. It is public relations. I told them what was funny. They had never come to the diner when I worked 12-hour shifts. They had never asked how I was paying for school. But the moment I got on stage, suddenly I was a family success story. My dad started to say that was not fair. I cut him off and told him it was exactly fair. They had thrown me out like trash, and now that I was shiny, they wanted to recycle me. He leaned back and exhaled. Then he said they just wanted a second chance. I told him I had wanted a first one. That landed. For a second, my mom looked like she might cry. Instead, she picked up the pie and slid it across the table. She said that if I ever wanted to talk, they were there. I looked at the pie. Apple. Store-bought. Just like the effort. They stood up and walked out. They did not slam the door. They did not look back. I sat there for a long time. Bruno nudged my foot like he was asking if that had been weird for me too. I scratched behind his ears and whispered that I knew. Then I opened the pie. It was dry. I did not plan to go viral. It happened on a Tuesday, the same day I clogged a condensate line so badly that the building sounded like it was gargling. Zeke fixed it while Dee kept muttering, "Bless this mess," and handing him wrenches like a surgical assistant. Just another day at the office. Then my phone started buzzing. At first, I thought it was a client. Then 2, then 5. The 6th text came from Jace, telling me to check Facebook because my mom had gone full local hero mode. I froze logged in, and there it was, the post. It was a picture of me on stage, mid-speech, probably screenshotted from someone's blurry iPhone recording. The caption was written in flowery language surrounded by emojis and a quote bubble. My mom wrote that she was so proud of her son Lucas that I had gone from humble beginnings to business leader, that they had always believed in me. She added a red heart and hashtags about family first, proud parents, and support mattering. Support matters. I nearly choked on my lunch. The comments were worse. People from their church were saying things like they had raised me right. Someone called it a testimony. Someone else said they were such involved parents. One lady even asked if my mom offered parenting classes. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sent my mom one message. I told her to take it down or I would. She replied almost instantly, saying she did not understand the hostility and asking why we could not celebrate me as a family. Oh, we were about to celebrate, just not the way she hoped. That night, I posted something of my own. It was not passive-aggressive. It was aggressive-aggressive. It was a photo collage, side-by-side shots. Me sleeping on the garage floor in a hoodie, my first job schedule taped to a fridge, the receipt folder, the van with the Florida-shaped dent, me holding a wrench and grinning like an idiot on our first crew job. In the caption, I wrote that I had built this with diner tips, YouTube tutorials, and duct tape. No handouts, no safety nets. If you were not there when I had nothing, you did not get to rewrite the story now that I had something. I ended it with, built, not gifted. Within an hour, it had 700 shares. By morning, it hit 3,000. The comments were heated. Half the town applauded. Strangers from HVAC forums chimed in. One guy said my post had made him call his mom and tell her to chill. The other half was family. Natalie messaged me that things had escalated. Grandpa was confused. Aunt Mary was praying. My mom sent me a long text, 4 paragraphs about misunderstandings, public shaming, and airing dirty laundry. My dad called. I did not answer. Zeke, of course, printed the post and pinned it in our garage next to the thermostat. He called it icon behavior. Dee nodded and said it was certified petty and that she was inspired. But I did not feel victorious. I just felt honest. For the first time in my life, the story was not being edited by someone else. There was no parent twisting facts to look better at brunch. There was no smiling through clenched teeth while they took credit for sacrifices they had not made. It was all out there, ugly, real, mine. Later that week, I got a call from the community center director. They were organizing a youth event called Rise Up Stories from the Ground Floor, and they wanted me to speak again, this time as the keynote. I said yes. The night of the event, I stood backstage in the same clean hoodie, holding a copy of my original receipt folder, now laminated and organized with tabs. But I had added one more item, a screenshot of my mom's Facebook post next to the post I had written in response. I did not do it just to embarrass her. I did it because when you build something from the floor of a garage, every crack in the journey matters. If people were going to talk about my story, they were going to get the whole thing, not the cleaned up version, not the "we were always proud" fiction. The version with dust, duct tape, and a lot of receipts. The next time my mom called, I did not even recognize the number. It came from her office line, the one she used to call clients back when she worked real estate full-time. For a second, I thought it might be a referral. I picked up. She said my name and told me it was Mom. I thought about hanging up immediately. I did not, but I definitely thought about it. She jumped right in, saying she had seen the post and the comments and that things had gone a bit overboard. I asked which part had gone overboard. The part where she claimed she had supported my business, or the part where the town now seemed to think she had taught me HVAC. Her voice did that wobbly thing it always did when she wanted to sound emotionally available. She said they were just trying to be part of my life again. I told her that if she wanted to be part of my life, she could start by being honest about the years when she was not. Silence. Then she said she did not understand why I was still so angry. She said I was successful. She said I had proven myself. She asked if that was not enough. That was the moment it hit me. They did not hate me. They hated that I did not need them anymore. I let the silence hang before answering. Then I told her it was not about proving myself. It was about remembering who helped and who did not. I hung up before she could twist it. Later that day, I walked into the garage and found Dee drawing HVAC diagrams on the whiteboard for a new intern. Zeke was teaching the kid how to load a van without bruising a condenser coil. This was my real family. People who showed up. People who stayed. People who did not throw you out over a power bill and then clap when the cameras turned on. I told them we were expanding. They raised their eyebrows. Dee asked if I was finally buying that second van. I grinned and told her no. We were getting a building. The community center had introduced me to a woman named Cheryl who ran a program for displaced youth. She was impressed by the business, the story, and especially the laminated receipts. She asked if I would be interested in a partnership. She would help secure a space if I trained kids from her program in HVAC basics. It was a no-brainer. We signed the lease a week later. It was a beat-up warehouse on the edge of town. Rusty siding, cracked concrete. It smelled like old popcorn and motor oil. We called it perfect. Zeke started painting the inside shades of blue and silver. He installed a full whiteboard wall. I brought in a couch from the thrift store and made it our break room. Bruno claimed it within minutes. We built a classroom in the back. Above the door, we hung a sign that said, "Welcome to the furnace. We turn pressure into power." Corny, sure, but it worked. Kids started coming in. Most of them were like us, kicked out, written off, ignored. One kid, Marcus, was 15 and living out of his cousin's basement. His first week, he broke 3 tools and cried in the supply closet. Now he can install a mini-split system faster than most professionals I have met. We did not just teach them tools. We taught them how to show up. We taught them how to keep going. We taught them how to laugh when the world told them ductwork was not a real future. Every month, we added names to the whiteboard. Each name belonged to someone who finished training and got their first job. Right now, there are 32 names. 32 kids who did not just survive, they started building. Last week, the local business council offered us a contract to upgrade the AC systems in 3 municipal buildings. It was a big job, real money. The kind of job my dad used to dream of landing back when he still called himself an entrepreneur. I signed the contract with Dee and Zeke standing beside me. We took a selfie. I posted it with a caption saying that when people said I would regret going into HVAC, they had forgotten one thing. I do not regret receipts. It got shared by the mayor's office. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I hoped my mom saw it. Not because I wanted applause, because I wanted her to finally understand what I meant when I said I had built this myself. Every bolt, every vent, every broken promise turned into a blueprint. Then came the annual Community Business Gala. It was the kind of event I had never been invited to before. This time, I did not just attend. I was the keynote speaker. I walked onto the stage in a fitted suit, clean boots, and a custom name tag that said, Lucas Rowland, founder, LV Heating and Air. The room was packed. Old bosses, city officials, a few teachers who had once suggested I aim lower, and my parents. They were near the back. I nodded at them once, no smile. The host handed me the mic. I looked at the crowd, at the cameras, at every suited expert who probably still did not know what a heat pump was, and I said that when I was 15, I got kicked out for wasting electricity. The room held its breath. Then I told them I figured it out. I worked, I failed, I fixed things. I built a company from duct tape and disappointment. And now I paused, smiled, and said, I was the power. Then I walked off the stage and did not look back.